And welcome back to Melrose Arch. And of course, the focus of our broadcast this morning here from the venue, and that is the exact name of the facility where we are at the venue, is of course the M20. And this taking place alongside the G20, so to speak. And it is, of course, the media component of what is to be discussed at this summit leading up to the November G20 Summit. And of course, just looking at some of the themes that are to be delved in, and I'm joined by a member of the M20 Organizing Committee here, Izak Minaar. Izak, thanks so much for stopping by. So just very briefly looking at some of the themes, because these are going to be very important given that this is an inaugural summit. So it's going to lay a groundwork for things going forward as well.
So the M20 has three main focus points. One is information integrity in the broader information ecosystem. The second is media viability, and the third is the role of journalists in supporting democracies, and specifically in the G20 countries. So today, we're going to focus on four main issues. One is on information integrity, looking at anything from information integrity in reporting, for instance, on climate change, through to what kind of accountability systems there should be to balance the rights of the public and the media and other role players. So that's the one theme. The second theme is about AI and the media. And there are lots of issues ranging from protection of IP, some platforms utilizing newsrooms' IP without a proper agreement between them, through to how newsrooms actually innovate in using AI in their daily work. A third topic is then media viability, where we have some of the world's top thought leaders who will speak about different ways in which the media could be supported, or the media ecosystem can be supported, from how government can make it easier for them to operate, through to, for instance, the South African Competition Commission, some of the measures that they may announce, but more importantly, what the media must do themselves to make sure that they survive. The fourth big issue that we're going to discuss today is about the safety of journalists, online, offline, specifically the very difficult situation in which women journalists operate with online attacks on them. And of course, we can't do this without also discussing what's happening in Gaza, where journalists are being killed literally on a daily basis.
And of course, each of those important in own right. But, you know, if we just run through them very briefly with regard to media integrity, that, of course, is so key, especially in this information where there is so much disinformation and misinformation being peddled. So the integrity of media platforms when it comes to actually doing things like fact-checking, Isa.
Exactly. Fact-checking is such a key aspect, together with accountability systems. So the African Commission on Human People's Rights recently issued or adopted a resolution where they talk about ways in which states must be guided on how they need to deal with the issue of platform accountability, with fact-checking, and broadly with information integrity. So we expect today that the African Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression and Access to Information will expand a bit on what the African Commission will be doing in that regard.
And then, of course, the issue of media freedom and the protection of journalists, equally key. You mentioned what's happening in the Middle East, in Gaza, where we see in that particular war, there was an infographic that I looked at yesterday, more journalists killed than in any other conflict, including World Wars I, II, and many others.
Yeah, that's true. And despite the fact that there are UN resolutions, UNESCO programs, the African Commission who issued a number of guidelines on how states have a duty to actually protect journalists. It just seems like nobody cares. So we will definitely need to look at that. In fact, one of the SANEF executive members, Professor Glenda Daniels from Wits University, she drafted a policy brief on journalist safety with very specific recommendations on what should the media do, what do we want G20 countries to do to protect journalists and not just look the other way when journalists are killed in Gaza, for instance.
Well, Izak, thank you so much. And Izak Minaar just stepping in and a member of the organizing committee for the M20 Summit and some of the key themes that will be under discussion. And of course, just touching on them, but of course, we'll speak to other role players throughout the day to get into more detail regarding all of these, because media sustainability in terms of how do we sustain our newsrooms going forward. But also love to hear from you in terms of what are your expectations and what do you make of the media in this day and age. M20 hashtag that you can use in sending those to @MorningLive SABC. Well, we're going to take a break after this. Tsepo Mungwai with Bottom Line.